People who have survived an attempted murder, what is your story? Had a girl cut my brake lines on my car. Didn't know until we checked the camera from the apartment complex. Luckily she cut straight through them versus slitting them. When I attempted to crank the car, the brake pedal went straight to the floor and I immediately knew something was wrong. Random dude shot me in the chest because he thought I was my drug dealer neighbor. My neighbor was 6'3" and black. I'm 5'11" and white. Joke's on him. All he got were a few cigarettes, some pocket change, and 35 years on an attempted second-degree homicide conviction. Not me, but my mother. Context: we were already independent. She lived alone with 2 dogs, and burglar break into in her house. He tried to torture her with small cuts with a knife he had. When she screamed, the dogs, 2 beautiful 80 kg/160 lb Rottweilers, defended her. The delinquent was left with facial skin tearing, skull sinking, multiple fractures in one of the arms. We had to hire a specialized cleaning service to remove the smell of blood. Such good dogs. My older sister tried to stab me with a large knife in an attempt to kill me on my 16th birthday. My mother grabbed the knife off her before it got my stomach and slammed her against the fridge and yelled at me to run. Last time I saw my older sister, she said, "I've gotten over it and you should too. It's pathetic to hang on to it." She then told people it was self-defense because I tried to hurt her. I was literally eating my birthday breakfast. I didn't sleep properly for 2 years while she was in the house because she constantly tried to break into my room at night to slit my throat while I slept. I hate her. I feel like I am very late to the party, but my uncle was attempted murdered by random and pure bad luck. He was living in a high rise and some crackhead pressed every single buzzer. Someone let him in out of laziness, not caring, wanting the buzzer to stop. The crackhead proceeded to knock on every single door down the hallways and my uncle is the first to answer the door. The crackhead pulls out a pair of scissors and plunges them into his throat. The crackhead then nonchalantly walks out of the building and says to a passing couple, "You should probably call the police because I just murdered someone." He was picked up very quickly, and my uncle survived for a year or 2 before his epilepsy killed him. In addition, it was a very small world, as my uncle went to school with this crackhead 30 years earlier, and knew his name to identify him. Not that there needed any more evidence in the case. I'm so sorry to hear about your uncle. As an epileptic, I didn't know you could die from it, so that's terrifying. I delivered a pizza to a house just outside of the city. On the way back, I stopped to help a car that pulled over in front of me with their hazard lights on. I pulled up beside them and thought it was weird that nobody rolled down a window or made any kind of contact with me for around 15 seconds. The passenger then jumped out of his side of the car yelling that they needed help as he made his way toward my car. I thought something was weird about this. As I started to pull away before he could get to my passenger door, he began shooting at me. I ducked my head after the first shot entered through the back window and embedded in my passenger's seat headrest. Another shot entered through the rear window, while the other 3 only hit the outside metal parts of my car. He missed altogether with another shot. I remember being sure I was about to die as he fired more shots at me. I was very surprised that it wasn't panicky. It was just like, "Oh, I guess this is it." Turns out it was a plot to rob me. The pizza was ordered and the guys were stationed down the road to intercept me. They knew who I was and they knew that I would be able to recognize them, as I had delivered a few orders to them before. The guy wasn't wearing anything to cover his identity, which leads me to believe that he would have shot and killed me if he would have made it inside my car. By the next morning they had all been arrested. The shooter was found guilty of attempted murder and sentenced to 40 years in prison. He later appealed that sentencing because there was a word wrong in the jury instructions. He won the appeal and ended up being sentenced to 10 years, and was released November of 2010 after 5 years. The remaining 5 years were to be served as parole probation. He was arrested twice for parole probation violation when he was only a couple months away from total freedom. I laughed. TLDR. Some people tried to murder me for pizza money. They shot. They missed. They got caught. They did time, but not enough. Then did more. I saw 2 people stab someone to death in what I assume was a drug deal gone wrong. When I was on a night walk, Spent another hour being chased and hiding in a backyard so they wouldn't do the same to me. Scary night. My parents moved to Mozambique during the mid-90s. I was around 8 at the time and started going to school there. A nice private one. Can't complain. My father was working for the Red Cross in Chimoio, so we had a comfortable life. One day, before arriving to school with a friend of mine, some sketchy guy stopped us, offered a whole bunch of money to just take some small box to a white van that was parked at the end of the street, not even 100 meters away. My lucky day, I guessed. It actually was, but for different reasons. When I was going to go grab the box, my friend grabbed me by the shirt, pushed me, and started running, screaming, something I didn't understand in Shona, the local dialect. That moment was when it clicked. The moment I looked back, the guy had already vanished. So, wherever you are, thank you, Jude. I will never forget you. My mom attempted to murder me and my sister when we were younger. She was going through a psychotic episode and pretty suicidal, and I said the wrong thing that set her off. She chased us down to the basement with a knife. We ran into my room and my sister hid in the closet while I tried to fight my mom off at the door. She was trying to push it open while I was trying to push it closed. It was a back and forth struggle until she put her hand in the door. I think she was trying to engage my non-violence because she thought I wouldn't shut the door on her hand. But I slammed the door over and over again until her fingers broke. Meanwhile, my dad, who was in the house, finally came downstairs to check in what was happening. Mind you, this all happened very fast and my dad has a habit of zoning out when my mom gets in her episodes. He ended up pulling her off of the door and my sister and I ran out of the house and jumped in our van. He drove around the corner and turned off the lights and we all ducked down in our seats to hide and stayed there until my dad saw her drive our other car off. Frequently asked questions. 1. Why didn't your dad, your sister call the police? I was at the time busy with a door. My dad was at the time being negligent. My sister was at the time in a state of panic. My dad should have called the police. He didn't. 2. How old were you and your sister? I was 12. She was 13. 3. What happened afterward? My mom tried to kill herself at our cabin and was hospitalized. She and my father tried to work things out. They didn't, and it ended when I was 18 with a divorce. 4. Do you still talk to your family? Some of them. I talk to all of my siblings and am very close to the sister who was with me at the event. She and I very rarely discuss this though. 5. Where are you now mentally? I am doing much better and live half a country away. I still have PTSD from the events as well as the other abuse from my mom, other events in my life. 6. Why didn't you do A, B, or C? If I was in your situation I would have done A, B, or C. Because I didn't. I did my best at the time how I could. I survived, so I guess I did okay. 7. This sounds like Haunting of Hill House Binding of Isaac. It's not though. I would have saved a lot of money in therapy if it were fictional. Please tell me this had consequences for your mother. When I was a kid, probably around 2nd grade, our house got robbed and my mom and I came home while it was in progress. For whatever reason, she decided to go in and interrupt them. She grabbed her gun, didn't shoot, yelled at them to get the frick out of my house, and then we drove off in a hurry to the corner store to call the cops. This was before cell phones. Less than 2 weeks later, my mom and I are sitting in the living room on the couch, our backs to the front door. Someone drives by and fires about 6 or 8 shots into the front of our house. Thank God for a steel front door. The cops came and said they didn't think the 2 incidents were related. I was 13. My mother was screaming. Legit screaming. Not the yelling that a lot of people call screaming. They're different. Trust me. At me because I made a tuna sandwich for lunch and didn't make one for her. She was a courier and I never knew when she would be home and when she wouldn't. These were the days before everyone had a cell phone, and she frequently bought lunch on the road. I was done with lunch before she got home, but she still flipped. I was selfish, a horrible daughter, etc. Anyway, as she was screaming, I was backing away from her until I was pressed against the sink cabinet. She kept coming towards me. I swear to God, before I knew what was happening or could process register, she had the scissors out of the knife block in her hand and she was still coming towards me. Scissor points directed at me. I screamed bloody murder. My brother came rushing out of his room, right off the kitchen, as she started swinging them down at my throat. He caught her hand maybe 2 inches away from my skin, and she was coming at me with enough force that there was still some forward momentum for him to counter. If he had not been there, they would have been buried in my throat. To this day, she doesn't understand why I have nothing to do with her, and the closest thing I've ever received to an apology was "I'm sorry you're not over that." Yeah, she's since been diagnosed as a narcissistic sociopath. Imagine my utter lack of surprise. RA said, but narcissist is a great place to vent. Neighbor stabbed me in the chest because I hit him over the head twice with a 10-pound weight to try to stop him stabbing his wife. However, I'm fat and the knife didn't go deep enough through my breast tissue to do any damages. Yay for being fat. He's still up for attempted murder though. I had seizures when I was younger, so the fact that I remember this is amazing to me. My dad was driving my sisters and I to the new home he and my mother had just purchased like a few weeks before, when a woman who had wanted to commit suicide drove head on in my dad's lane. I remember him switching to the opposite lane a few times, and each time the woman would switch as well, still driving straight for our car. We didn't get hit and cops were called and explained that the woman was trying to kill herself. I don't know what happened to the woman, but I mean I lived. My family and I didn't have any injuries, but we were pretty shaken up. Suicide is bad, but that's a very crappy way to commit suicide. If you want to die, it doesn't mean someone else also has to die. When I was 6 years old, I saw my bio dad stab my bio mom 20 times in front of my little brother and I. He took my bio mom's blood and rubs it on my brother's face and said, "This is your mother's blood." She almost died right in front of us. They got her to the hospital in enough time to save her life. But I was scary and I remember everything. He only went to jail for 8 years. He claimed he heard demons telling him to do it. I was walking down the street and somebody missed me in a drive-by. It was like that scene in The Apartment in Pulp Fiction. This happened about 10 years ago in Phoenix, AZ, near 99th Ave and Lower Buckeye. I'm not someone anybody on the street would feel the need to shoot, so I assume it was a random shooting. It wasn't me but my uncle. When I was a kid, around a decade ago, my uncle got shot while coming out of a bar with a few friends. His friend got hit once in his shoulder but was fine. My uncle, on the other, got hit 3 times, once in the colon, lung, and heart. By all rights, the shooter had gotten him and drove away. His friends rushed him to the hospital and, with the bullet lodged in his heart and blood entering his lung, he managed to survive. He was in a lot of pain for a long time, but since then he's gotten his life together and is getting married in about a year. I appreciate all the shot through the heart puns, LMAO. Keep 'em coming if you have more. Bullet to the heart and he survived. That's crazy. I worked in a jail and a guy from a 1%er biker gang tried to pay $10,000 to have me killed because he somehow got the idea that I was the Fed who busted him and was merrily pretending to be a jailer so I could spy on him. Don't do em, kids. The guy was bragging about it and one of the other inmates who I had saved from a heart attack with first aid didn't like that, so he beat the living crap out of the guy and then told me about it. Phone call recordings confirmed that he had promised the money to 2 guys if they shot me in the back of the head while escorting him to court and busted him out. Federal marshals rolled him up and on his way to court I whispered to him, "Your friends won't be joining us." When we got to the planned ambush point, instead of a bond hearing, he got charged for trying to have me murdered and organizing an escape. Not my story, but grandmother's friend was getting picked up from work by her husband when he shot at her 5 times. He missed 4 times and the 5th bullet hit the underwire of her bra. He then turned the gun around and killed himself. He had just been diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. She's alive and was completely uninjured. She now jokes about how bad of a shot he was to miss that many times. Crazy but story. Underwire doesn't just save boobs, it saves lives. Ex-girlfriend with mental health problems plotted to kill herself, her entire family and me. Starting with me, she ran at me with a screwdriver and I knocked her the frick out. Glad she started with me and not her little sister. Not my story, but a girl I went to high school with. She had a flat tire driving home from work one night during college and was pulled over in the side of the road. A car pulls up and she thinks someone is getting out to help. A dude just freaking rushes her, slits her throat and stabs her a few times, then gets back in his car and speeds off. She managed to make it to a nearby house and survived, but they never caught the guy. Freaking terrifying. A little bit of background. Here we use Telegram to buy drugs. We have this big group with lots of dealers. Very sorted. Very handy. So I just got home from college and parked my car on the street. It was about 2300 hours and I was just sitting and browsing my phone. At some point I got into Telegram to read some work related messages when suddenly a guy opens the passenger door and tries to get in. I'm trying to push him out and he's like, "Shh, you better not," and points to the driver's window where another guy was standing pointing a gun at me. He gets into the car and from the back another guy comes in, so now there's 3 of them. One on the passenger seat. One by the driver's window, which by now opened the door and putting the gun to my head, and another who was sitting in the back and was pointing a knife to my neck. At first I got really confused and I was like, what the frick, guys? The guy next to me started talking about money I owe them and started searching my car. I told them they're mistaken and he was like, "I saw you browsing Telegram, so don't crap me." At that point for some reason I got really calm, as I do not do drugs and I don't owe nobody money. I tried to explain that I was just reading work messages, but the guy with the gun got really mad and hit me with the gun. He tried to pull me out and the dude next to me stopped him and said there's an easy way to check, so he took my phone and started going through everything. At some point he got into my messages with my mom, my little sister. He was checking where do I work. He got into the gallery and found pictures of my dog, and that's when I worried the most. He said to his friends, "Look how cute his dog is. Ain't it? You love your dog, do you?" And I didn't reply. Few minutes later and he finds nothing. Then he explains me that they supplied some guy 4k worth of weed and he never paid. Next he says sorry and they're off. TLDR. I was sitting in my car when 3 armed men jumped in thinking I owe them drug money. I wasn't. Outside of the pistol whipping that went as nicely as it possibly could have, I think. I have told this story before. Hopefully some people will read this. I woke up one Monday at around 5 AM hearing things falling. I lived in an apartment building in the 2nd floor and I thought that someone had fallen down the stairs. I heard "help please" and reluctantly stood up to see what was up. There was no one in the stairs, but in one apartment the lights were on and the door was open. I went inside and I saw my neighbor on the floor, and a guy on top of him, with a knife trying to stab him, and my neighbor holding this guy's wrist to stop him. "Help me." He came through the window. I just stood there, waiting to see what was really happening, because I literally couldn't believe my eyes, until it hit me that this was real. This was happening. My first thought was to call the police, but then I realized that they would never get there on time. I had to take the knife, so I went there and I reached down to the floor, like one does, to pick up a coin, trying to grab the knife, and then he hit me. I fell to the floor, and we continued to struggle there. I have no idea how long that lasted. Could have been 10 seconds, or 10 hours. It felt that all my life I had been trying to get that knife, that I had spent years doing that, and nothing else remotely mattered. I don't remember much of the fight. I remember having his shoes on my face. I remember seeing his shoulder. I remember seeing his face. I remember him trying to stab us. But I have no idea in what order anything happened. I just know that at some point, somehow, I did got the knife. I stood up, and the guy turned towards me to take the knife again, but he had his back to my neighbor, and he was able to knock him down and pin him on the floor. Then I called the police, and the rest is bureaucracy. My dad was choking me and I had started to feel myself fade when my mom had finally come home and opened the door right on time. ETA. Wow, did this blow up way more than I expected. No, it's not a Simpsons reference. My dad was very abusive and my mom tried to shield us kids from it. She didn't leave him for another 8 years though, but he never got that close to killing me again, either. He killed himself a few years ago after a long 33 days with me trying to save him from his own demons. It was a long, manipulated and very calculated experience on his part. We're doing a lot better now and I appreciate the kind words. OMG, that's horrible, in so many ways. I hope you are okay. My sister's adopted brother, it's complicated, had his throat slit by a hitchhiker and was kicked out of the car and left for dead on a country road. Luckily no arteries we hit. He tied his t-shirt around his throat and managed to crawl to a farmhouse to get help and survived. They caught the guy and he went to jail. New scar and a husky voice was the outcome. Welp, not picking up hitchhikers for sure now. We were arguing and he started to grab me by the arms and throw me against the wall and to the ground. After maybe the 7th or 8th time of him throwing me, he carried me by my arms to my room and threw me onto the bed. Then, he pinned me down and started choking me. I had tried to get away before it happened, but he grabbed my face and shoved me down. I started to see flashes of black and white. I don't remember how, but I managed to get my feet under him and onto his chest and was able to push him off me. He was my boyfriend at the time. I couldn't believe someone who claimed to love me could do something like that. Now every time I feel even the slightest bit of not being able to breathe, I picture his face. And to make matters worse, he stalked me for like 8 months after I broke up him. He also told me if he would have gone through it, he would have burned my house down me in it. For anyone asking what happened that led up to this, I found out he was talking to another girl, so I confronted him and told him to go BW her if that's what he wanted. This made him mad. BC I wouldn't fight for him. He started shouting and claiming that I didn't love him. When I pointed out that he was the one who couldn't have possibly loved me, BC he was talking about a future this other girl. He got mad and that's when he started tossing me around. That guy's gonna frickin' kill someone one day. It really wasn't an attempted murder, more like an attempt at attempted murder. I have an autistic brother who I was closer to when we were younger. I went upstairs to his room to use his computer, because our other brother broke mine. He quietly left, and I didn't think anything of it. He returned shortly after, and when he opened the door my grandma stopped him and dragged him down the stairs. Turns out, for a long time my brother had voices telling him to kill me. He didn't want to but was so tired of hearing the voices and he was just going to kill me to get the voices to stop. My grandmother had worked with mentally ill patients before, so when he went downstairs to get the pair of scissors she saw the look in his eye and knew what would happen. He was sent to some fancy hospital for the mentally ill kids in Chicago. He hated it there. I forgave him and all that, but we've never been really close after that. Obviously, my brother was diagnosed as schizophrenic after this event. Autism does not cause you to hear voices in your head. I'm both happy and sad that you know what this is like. Please know this isn't a normal occurrence for mental illness. This was the only incident he ever had, and he really is a sweetheart. Mental illness does crazy things to your head. If you need help, please reach out for help. Your grandma is a freaking badass. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.